Hello, Scott here, Scott Chocolate. I was gonna show everybody how to temper and mold their chocolate, at least how I do it. This simplified version, for me anyway. It's kind of a version of bowl tempering. Guys, stop. I'll throw you outside. Yeah, sometimes you just have to be rough with them. So, anyway, got my melanger going. Inside of that is milk chocolate. It's been running for about 24 hours now, and we're ready to turn it off and get started on the tempering and molding process. So here we go. There, shut that off. It's significantly quieter then. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get it out of, get it out of the melanger. We'll just kind of set the actual melanger aside for the time being. So we're left with a bowl of chocolate. As you can see, you've got nice thick milk chocolate in there. So what I like to do is just kind of take the hardware out of the, the stones out of here and just put them in a bowl on their own and let them kind of, drip off. Thing you got to understand about this, it from time to time just gets a bit messy. There's not a whole lot you can do about that other than just kind of live through it. But first order of business is to take this chocolate and transfer it into a bowl. So we're kind of doing that right now. So pretty much use just your basic kitchen utensils here to scrape it, get it pushed out. For the most part, when you get done with this bowl, you're gonna treat it like you're about a 6-year-old tearing after the cookie batter after your mom just got done making chocolate chip cookies, because this is really tasty. But I try to get as much as I can out to actually get barred up for my chocolate, but sometimes you could be here all day trying to get all the chocolate out of the chocolate melanger. So anyway, you're gonna most likely get it all over your fingers and everywhere else, but I just try to scrape this off the best I can, with what I can at least get off in a relatively quick manner. But like I said, good thing about this is when you get done with this, so you'll be pretty much spinning this wheel and probably licking this thing off yourself anyway. So believe it or not, it tastes as good as it looks. So I'm just gonna put this away for now, so I don't spend a lot of time messing with this. We'll set it aside over here. So, the tempering process. The general technique to tempering chocolate is to take a portion of your chocolate and cool it down. For milk chocolate, the cooling it down to is probably down to below 80 degrees. I'd probably try to get my initial stuff down to 76, 78 degrees or lower, just to start really forming crystals. If I take a look at my existing chocolate right now, it's telling me it's about 110 degrees. I might stir it a little bit just to see. Yeah, I stir it and it's 116. So, there's no crystals in this chocolate. There's really no need to heat it up at all or anything, because really now you're going to try to get it to form the crystal types you want, the type 5, which I think are called the beta crystals. To do that, we generally will put a small amount of chocolate. You know, this is kind of where I might deviate from other people. I put a very small amount in there. And just kind of keep stirring it around. Guys, I'm making a video. They just don't listen. That's Zoe and Mila, by the way. They seem to interrupt about every video I do. Yeah, I know. So, yeah, but take a quick temperature reading of this chocolate. It's about 102. You know, this stuff's probably about 110. So, what we want to do is we just want to kind of keep stirring this around. As far as a quantity wise, you know, I've got very little in here really. I mean, maybe a fifth of all the chocolate that I made. But the idea here is to get this cooled down to where it starts forming crystals. You know, you want to get it cooled down to, let's say, in the high 70s, you know, something below 80. You'll start noticing it, the viscosity is going to get thicker, and it'll start forming crystals. Meanwhile, you've got this one staying warm, and then ultimately what you do is you get this to start forming crystals, and then you're going to start adding the warmer chocolate to gradually bring it up to, oh, with milk chocolate, somewhere nearing 90 degrees. It probably doesn't have to be quite that. Maybe 88 might be a target, but, you know, 90 degrees is pretty safe. With darker chocolates, you know, it's a slightly higher temperature you want to take it back up to. And what that really does is you've created a couple crystals by letting it cool, a couple forms of crystals. And you just want to eliminate one, and the only real way to eliminate that one is to take it up to about, let's just use 90 degrees because it's an easy number to remember. So it eliminates that one, and you're left with just one form of crystal. You know, there's 6 total. You're basically looking for the 5th one. So to get that particular crystal, you've got to cool it down to get it to start making it, and then you got to heat it back up to eliminate everybody but that one. But the critical thing is you can't get it over, in this case, 90 degrees, really much past that, or you will actually just eliminate that one too, and you're kind of back to where you started, where you have no crystals. So with milk chocolate, I guess that target we're going to use is 88 degrees. So once we get it back up to 88 degrees, we're not going to mess with that anymore or try to get it any hotter. Now what you don't see over here is I have a kitchen sink that's got about this much water in it, and you know, I'm looking at it right now, and it's 107 degrees. Now why I have that is generally I'll keep adding this back in to bring this temperature up once I've sufficiently let it cool. And at some point, if I can't get it back up to about 88 degrees by combining the two back together, I put it in a water bath. Now that, when I say a water bath, I'm just going to let the water get around the bowl, so that warm water will heat this back up, and I'll just keep stirring it and monitoring it, and when it hits 88 degrees, we'll pull it out, and she's tempered. So that's the strategy. You know, for the most part, it works pretty good. So the first part of the strategy is you're going to sit here and just play with the chocolate until you get this, you know, this first stuff. You can see it's gradually cooling, and you know, in theory, because of mass, you know, this one should cool at a much slower rate than this one, because this is significantly less mass than this one. So if you play with it, keep agitating it, stirring it, the crystals will start to form. You can even start to see them now a little bit as it starts to kind of thicken up. You know, we'll take a quick temperature. It's 86 degrees. So we've got a ways to go yet before we're really ready to start blending the chocolate back together. And kind of what this does is this creates the crystals you're looking for. And then as you add this one in, these crystals kind of help make this start to create crystals, and I don't know if it's kind of a chain effect or what, but ultimately what you get left with is tempered chocolate. You know. Yes, Mila agrees with me apparently. So, like I said, you can kind of see as we go, the chocolate is starting to thicken up. You know, and by looking at it, we're not ready yet. It's going to be a little bit more puddly before we're ready to start adding chocolate back in. I'm guessing this stuff's about, you know, maybe 82 degrees right now. 83 it says. So we're going to let it temperature drop a little bit. You know, I have in the past to speed this process up a little bit. I've, you know, put this bowl in the refrigerator for a minute or two just to kind of expedite that cooling process, but for the most part you don't need to do that. You just need to agitate it and play with it, and you can see it's starting to get slightly thicker. So it's starting to create these crystals that you're looking for. You know, a lot of people, you know, would wonder, well, why do you need to bring it up or down and then back up, and why not just, you know, have the constant at 90 degrees and it'll create and form the crystals? I don't know if I know a great answer for that. Maybe the way to think about that is, well, there really isn't a whole lot of crystals created much above, you know, 90, you know, 3-4 degrees. You've kind of obliterated all of them. So at 90 degrees, you know, you haven't really got the chocolate to even really start to want to form crystals. That's the purpose of cooling it down, to get it to start to create crystals. And then by heating it back up, you're eliminating the one type of crystal that you don't want, and you're left with, you know, the type of crystal you do want. So I'm gonna take a quick temperature here. We're at 80 degrees now, so we're starting to see some pretty good, you know, crystal forming here. A guy could, you know, maybe, you know, be close to calling this good, and you could start adding it back in. But I've found if I drop it about another 4 degrees, I've had very good luck with my tempering, as if we're creating the crystals and the type of crystals I want. And if for some chance you can't get it warm enough, when you start blending it back together, if you can't get it, you know, back to 88 degrees, then you got to put it in the water bath and raise the whole mixture up. So now when you start blending this back together, you got to put it together in slow amounts, because you got to realize that at no time can you surpass, let's just use a target of about 90 degrees on this. If you surpass 90 degrees, you're going to just, you know, it'd be like dropping an atom bomb on it and they're all gone. Then you kind of have to start this whole process over. So yeah, that's really the key to pay attention to when you're doing this, is do not over add chocolate on the early phases, because there's a lot more chocolate in there than there is in here. And if you add too much too quickly, you're going to spike that temperature and you know, raise the chocolate too high. So we're at about 78 degrees, and you can see now as at 78 degrees, it's starting to, you know, be a little more thick. Even when you feel it, you can tell it's thicker. You know, out of curiosity, we'll kind of stir this a little bit and see what kind of temperature we're running over here. This is running at 105, so, you know, if you combine these back two together, you'd shoot way past that target, because there's, you know, 5-6 times as much chocolate in there as there is in here. So, you know, you can see now chocolate's starting to get thick. You know, really compared to this is still pretty runny yet. And that's just due to the, you know, the difference in temperature. So actually, when you start pouring this out, I may be a little down the road here, but when you start pouring this out, obviously, the closer you have this to, you know, 88 degrees when you're pouring it, the easier it's going to be to work with. So at any point where if it gets too cool on you, all you got to do is just put it back in your water bath and warm it up. Just don't warm it past, you know, 90 degrees, or you're gonna, you know, take the temper out of it. So if you look at it now, you're seeing we're starting to form crystals that we're looking for. And Temperature wise, I'm guessing we're somewhere in the 76-ish. So, you know, we may just play with it for another minute or so, smear it around. You can see how creamy it is, the color of it. It's a very light, milky chocolate. Very sweet, obviously, if you remember the recipe from my other video. I guess you can have to go back and look at that to see how I made this chocolate. This is just the tempering and pouring process. So, all right, we're gonna start adding some back in. So we're gonna quickly look at, we're 76 degrees. So we don't really want to add probably much more than maybe an equal amount of what we got in there. So we're going to do that quickly here, just a small amount, and we're going to stir it up quick. And then we're going to take a quick stab to see where our chocolate temperature is. It's 89 degrees, so we got pretty close to our threshold there. 89 is still fine. That's probably the exact target for hitting temper. But you know, too much more than that, and we would have you know, wiped them all out. Which, yeah, unfortunately, I've done that before. Then you kind of start over. But so right now, I would say I still have more chocolate in here than I do in here. And this stuff, if you poured it out right now, I'm fairly confident it would be tempered, because you got it back up to right at that temperature that you were shooting for, you know, 88, 89 degrees. Right now it's at 87. So in reality, before you start adding more back in, you've got to let it cool down again, because it's a mass thing. You know, you want this probably to cool back down to, let's say, maybe 82 degrees, somewhere in there, before you add some back in. Maybe at 83, 84, you could add some back in, but just got to be a little bit careful about how much you add, you know, volume, mass-wise versus what's in there, based on the two relative temperatures. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but you know, this one's running about 98, 99 degrees. This one's running 86 degrees. So if they were equal parts, in theory, if you dumped them together, you just add those two numbers up and divide by 2. That should be the result of the end temperature. But right now, it would be too hot to do that. So you're going to let this cool a little bit more, and let the temperature come down. So while this one's coming down, you know, you just kind of, you can go back and you can stir the other one and kind of just monitor, I guess, what the temperature is in that. 99, so, you know, still significantly warmer than your tempered chocolate, or the one you're trying to temper. So maybe I'll look at molds a little bit. You know, back here I've got my molds, you know, ready to pour. I'll bring them over. I put almonds in some of mine. I mean, just ask Hershey's. They made tons of money on putting almonds in their milk chocolate. I've learned that if you want to put almonds in there, if you buy just the raw almonds, it's best to roast them. You know, it kind of dries them out a little bit. I put them in the oven for half hour at about 300 degrees, and it just kind of roast them. I think it makes them just a little better, you know, finished product. So we'll see where we are. We're at 83.5 here, give or take. So, you know, we can put a little more chocolate back in. We don't want to do too much. We'll just dip a little back in there. And we're just gradually adding one to the other. So just gradually add it in. And then that new chocolate will start to form crystals, you know, by being in with this chocolate. Now we're at about 86.5. So we're at getting close to our our tempering temperature, but not quite there, you know. So we haven't went over the borderline or anything. We're just, you know, gradually getting it back up. And as we keep dumping chocolate in here, obviously there's less in there and then more in here. Yeah, that makes sense, don't it? So now we're at 86 over here. We're at 93. So we're getting closer to the point where, you know, we just don't have enough warm chocolate left to do too much damage because of, you know, the mass of one versus the other. But I still gradually like to add it together so I don't cross that line, you know, because otherwise you're gonna have to start this whole process over. So we're at 87.9, so we're right at, pretty much right at temper here. Kind of a good ending to this that actually seems to be working out on my video. Otherwise, I'm not sure how I start this thing over. But, you know, my chocolate over here is 92. My chocolate over here is 87. You're pretty much to the point where I think you can get them combined, and I don't think you could, you know, really get too hot anymore because there's way more chocolate in this bowl now than in the other bowl. But we're gonna leave a little bit out. We're at 88.5, so we're right there. We're pretty much right where you want to be tempering this chocolate. So we'll just kind of let it set for a minute. We'll see what this one is. This one's 91. Maybe stir this one a little bit, and you know, when I'm comfortable that putting one into the other isn't gonna, you know, this one says 88.5. This one says 87. You know, we're at a point we can just dump the two together. They're pretty much both at the same temperature now, and there they are. You pretty much are left here now with tempered chocolate. The beauty of this is if you do it right, believe it or not, how I just did it, you didn't even have to use the water bath to get it back up to a constant temperature, or get it back up to, you know, your temperature, if that's what you want to call it. In this case, I was targeting 88 degrees. So now you're pretty much going to take this bowl and probably get it out of your way because you're going to need a little room here. So now you look at your finished product here. Let's see the top. We're running about, you know, 87.5 degrees. So we're pretty much right there at temper. So this is now tempered chocolate. So really all you have left to do is to start, you know, putting it in your molds. As you can see, I've got some molds here. You know, this one, I'll move this a little bit, you can see that better maybe. Here. That's a mold with some almonds in it. This, you know, got some other ones, maybe put it here without just regular mold. But really all you're going to do is you're just going to, you know, dump the chocolate in the mold, you know, kind of fill it up. You know, once you've done it a few times, you kind of know where your limit is. You kind of fill it up and then, you know, move to the next one. If you spill a little bit, you know, for the most part, it's kind of hard to, you just almost got to deal with it, leave it alone, because by the time you try to clean this up, it makes more of a mess than you really want. So, but you'll put chocolate in these molds just like this, and like I said, the closer you can, sooner you can do it when you get it into temperature and keep it as warm as possible, the better off you are, because it just gets harder to work with as it gets cooler. But you're going to want to take these and kind of vibrate them around a little bit. You know, in a perfect world, you'd have a vibrating table, and you just set them on there, and it would vibrate it down. But really, that's all you want to do is you just want to, you know, kind of slap them around a little bit, vibrate it. The chocolate will kind of seek its level to the bottom, and the air and whatnot comes out of the chocolate, and you get a decent looking bar. So I'm going to bring a few more over here. I've got, you know, I'm making apparently 3 with nuts in them, and then, you know, I'm guessing I'll probably have 4 that are plain when I'm all said and done. But you just dump the chocolate in there. So this one's molding up pretty well. All right. So it's really pretty simple, really. You know, there's several other ways to temper chocolate. One I think the coolest way is these guys that do it on a slab, where they take it out on a granite slab and they play with it and slather it around and play with it, and you know, it's almost like going to a Japanese hibachi grill where they just, you know, do all this fancy footwork with it to get it tempered. Really, all they're really doing when they're playing with it is they're taking it out and you know, cooling it on a slab. And they, you know, they've done it enough that they know by looking at the stuff, you know, when it's cool enough. They're pretty much doing it by, you know, by look. You know, they've just tempered so much chocolate that, you know, they might be taking the temperature of it, but I think for the most part they know by looking at it when it's cool enough, and they just start adding it back into the other chocolate to kind of do the same process I'm doing, but they do it in a much more distinct, unique way than I do. My way is kind of boring, really, but nonetheless effective. So anyway, I'm trying not to slobber all over here as I pour. So you can see I've got, you know, maybe a little bit more I can put in this mold. I'm trying not to make a whole nother candy bar, but I might have to. So we're going to slide him over there. I think he's good there, and we're just going to scrape what's left out of this one and get it into this last mold. But so for the most part, I guess that is the process of tempering chocolate. So I think I'll just shut this off and do this last one here, and take care. Thanks.